stayed in the bath till her skin resembled a raisin. She had heard AnatiYah come back with his son, and the little fella seemed full of energy as he ran back and forth past the bathroom. She wanted to go out and meet him, but she was afraid of his father. So, like a coward, she hid in the bathroom, till she couldn't hide anymore. She couldn't help but chuckle to herself. Her behavior now was the very reason Ty refused to treat her like an adult, which any other time would infuriate her. Now, she just wished one of her family members were here to protect her as if she was a kid. Stepping out the tub, she prayed for courage. She was a grown woman, and she could handle this. It wasn't like AnatiYah was a violent man. He was nothing at all like Cain. He seemed reasonable, well educated. She would simply go out there and find out what her duties were, and then she would find a spot to rest her exhausted body. AnatiYah had brought her bag back with him and slid it into the bathroom, only sticking his arm in the door, which only testified more to the point of him being a reasonable man. At least, that's what she told herself as she dried off with a towel she found.
Please, Yah, let him be a reasonable man.
She continued to pray as she put on a clean shirt from her bag and a pair of sweatpants that belonged to Ty. Then she looked at herself in the mirror. Wet, her long hair drew up into tight curls around her head. On the stand, she had found the shampoo was a little jar of hair oil. She used some of it and quickly oiled her hair. Normally, she liked to braid her hair after washing it, or actually getting Ty, who braided way better than her, to do it. But since she was in a strange house and had hidden in this bathroom long enough, she just gathered the mass up into a ponytail. Tomorrow it was going to be hell to deal with, but she would cross that path when she got there. He said Ty was next door at Monroe's house.
Dear Yah, could that be our Monroe?
If it was, she could only imagine what her sister was going through right now. Ty had always been tight-lipped about what happened between them that day he and Dawid disappeared from the gym. But whatever had happened had hurt her badly. She had fallen into a terrible depression that had her parents worried. It had gotten to the point that their dad had taken to praying at Ty's bed, because for weeks after they left, she refused to get out of it. She cried all the time. She refused to eat. Their mama had threatened to force feed her if she didn't eat just a little bit. Although Gina had been pretty young when that happened, she knew Ty hurt like that because she really did love Monroe. And now that he was gone, it felt as if half her heart was missing. Of course, her sister would later deny she loved him, but Gina knew better. She couldn't wait to talk to her and find out what was going on. Then a thought hit her. The elder said that Ty and the rest of the group would come together to sing in the choir. So what did that mean for Gina? She wasn't a part of the group. Dear Yah, would she be able to see her sister? No doubt, it all depended on her new master. She shook her head. What did it even mean that she had a master now? What was she expected to do? She prayed, just cleaning and cooking. Maybe even looking after Yaakov, like he said, and nothing else. Although she recognized that look in his eye. Men had been looking at her like that since she was a teen. But she never worried about it because her dad was always there. And if he wasn't, Dawid or Ty was. So she was always safe. But even though men had been checking her out since she was a teen, she had never seen one look at her like the judge had. It was as if he looked past her breast, butt, and pretty face. The places he looked was off limits to him, because they belonged solely to her. The hunger in his eyes surpassed anything she had ever seen. He hungered for something he couldn't have. And what was the irony? That nobody was here to protect her from the biggest threat she had ever faced. After cleaning up the bathroom behind herself, she cracked the door and stuck her head out. Carefully, she eased it open. The house had gotten quiet. and she wondered if they had fallen asleep. And if they had, could she sneak out and go next door? With her bag on her shoulder and her boots in her hand, she tiptoed toward the living room where the front door was. There was a soft glow coming from the area, but she prayed the room was empty so that she could ease out the door. However, she came up short at the sight of AnatiYah with reading glasses on his face, sitting on the couch. He was frowning down at an open ledger that sat on the table in front of him as he jotted down some things with his pencil. Next to it was 3 more just like it. Asleep on the couch by his leg was little Yaakov. The soft glow came from a fire that burned in the fireplace and a lamp that sat on the corner table next to him. The judge looked up when he heard her approach. For a minute, he just stared at her, looking at her with those hungry eyes of his, before a little tired smile appeared on his handsome face. "Hey, beautiful." His deep voice was almost soothing. "I thought you were going to hide out in the bath all night." Slowly, she approached the empty couch, keeping a weary eye on him. He was tired, that much was clear. And he appeared less threatening with reading glasses on his face and a pencil in his hand.
What are you doing?
She muttered, putting one leg underneath her as she eased down on the couch. And although this was the empty couch, she still went down to the furthest end of it as far away from him as she could get. He looked down at the books. "Going over the inventory. A job which I hate."
Inventory of what?
He exhaled, sitting back to rest against the couch, lifting his massive arms to rest in the back of his head. "Everything. Houses, land, food, the storehouses, supplies, you name it. It's my job to make sure there's always enough." She nodded, looking down at her jogging pants leg, where she picked at invisible lint. She couldn't take looking directly into his hungry gaze. It made her extremely nervous, to the point that she was shaking.
So, how does this place exist? I thought the whole world was being ravished.
She muttered, still not looking up at him. He chuckled. "It is. And it won't be long till the ravisher makes his way here as well. We've been granted a reprieve while the people are gathered. I don't know how many more are coming, only that they're coming. And once we are all gathered that are leaving out this way, we will begin a very perilous journey." She looked up at him then.
What do you mean this way? Are there other places like this?
He nodded. "I like to call them Goshens. Yes, there are other Goshens, gathering places."
How do you know this?
He smiled. "Yahuwah showed me." His words were low. She nodded, looking back down at her pants leg and that invisible lint. She inhaled, working up all her nerves to ask the question that was on the forefront of her mind.
What's gonna happen to me?
She finally blurted out. He sat up then, bringing his arms to rest against his knees. Suddenly, he no longer looked tired. "We're going to be married." Her head jerked up.
What? That's not what the elder said.
He chuckled. "I don't care what the elder said." She shook her head.
Ooh, you got to stop lying so much.
This made him laugh as he sat back on the couch. "How am I lying now?" She pointed at him.
This was you in front of the elders. Me and my boy could use a hand around my place.
As she impersonated him, she did a dopey face to match. That caused him to laugh harder.
We could sure use a little help. Did you or did you not say that?
Yes, those are my exact words. But what is a wife if not a helpmate? Her mouth dropped. It was clear this man was sly as a fox and could not be trusted. She narrowed her eyes at him.
But I don't want to marry you.
He shrugged. "You have no choice." His manner at this moment was so irritating, she folded her arms and glared at him.
Sure I do. It's a free country. You just can't force a woman to marry you.
He looked around himself. I don't know where you've been, princess, but you obviously hadn't seen what has happened to the world around you. It is no longer free. It is wrapped so tight in bondage that it's dying from it. And you are no longer free either. You now have a master. Who you marry is to your master's discretion. Gina opened her mouth, but then closed it. What could she say to that? His words were true. If he insisted, how could she deny him? She was not a fighter like Ty. No doubt at this point, her sister would have pulled her blade and held it under his neck, telling him to think again if he thought he was going to force her to marry him. Now she wished she had listened to her father when he had tried to train her in combat.
Why?
Was all she can get through her frustration. Why what, sweetheart?
Why would you force somebody to marry you? You are so handsome. You can have any woman you like. Why are you forcing me?
So, you think I'm handsome? She rolled her eyes.
Of course. In your vanity, you've missed the point completely. Why are you forcing me to marry you?
She pleaded with him to take her question serious. For a minute, he didn't speak. For the first time, a man whose speech seemed to come easy to was speechless. He exhaled. My son is not the only one that took my wife's death hard. I can't help but wonder if I had been here more, would she have made it? He shook his head. I threw myself into it. Sure, there were women who came and helped after her death in hopes of joining in a union with me. But I didn't see them. I mean, yeah, they were there, but I didn't see them. And then Yah showed me you in a dream. And for the first time since my wife died, I saw you were the most beautiful thing my eyes had ever beheld. And then I found you. And he shook his head. Look, if we don't marry, then we're going to be living in sin. Because there's no way I can be around you and not touch you, taste you. I have thought a little else since laying eyes on you. Okay. Not what Gina had expected to hear. She looked down as she felt the blush spread across her face.
You could always let me go,
she muttered. He chuckled. How can you ask a man to let go the other half of himself? I will be weakened and vulnerable because I'll only be half a man. Gina rubbed her eyes with her fingers. The judge was a master with words, that was clear. And she was just too tired to verbally spar with him right now.
How about this? I cook for you. I clean for you. I'll take care of your son for you. And, you know, if ever we find ourselves in a situation where we are faced with sinning, then I will marry you. But until then, you let me do the job you stood in front of the court of law and said you were bringing me here to do.
He chuckled, and his eyes turned pure bedroom on her. So, you think that you can live here with me and not fall prey to my charm? It was her turn to laugh.
Perhaps I don't find you all that charming.
He chuckled. It's too late. You already admitted you find me handsome. She shrugged her shoulder in a way that was so butter baby. Handsome maybe. Charming? Not so much. He held his head back and laughed. Wow, you've been here for only a few hours and I've laughed more than I've laughed in 3 years. When his laughter died down, he held up his hands. But what if?
What if what?
She asked. What if you fall prey to my charms? And I assure you, I won't be able to remain on my best behavior for long. You are an extremely beautiful woman and would tempt any full-blooded heterosexual male to distraction. Once again, his words caused her to blush. She cleared her throat.
And I can assure you that while you may have behavioral problems, I, on the other hand, have always been a good student. You can ask anybody that knows me. I'm here to do a job, nothing more.
Something about her words made a very devious look cross his face. He licked his bottom lip. So you've always been a good student, huh? She nodded.
Mm-hmm.
And, you don't think I can convince you to participate in a little naughtiness, huh? She shook her head, looking her nose down at him, as if he was the scum of the planet Earth.
You wouldn't be the first heathen to cross my path.
That caused him to erupt in another fit of laughter. Oh dear Yah, what have you sent for your servant? He muttered to himself, as he actually wiped away tears. So you're saying you're here to do your job, which means being obedient to your master.
As long as my master is not asking me for...
She blushed, clearing her throat. Her gaze went down to the floor.
Sex,
she whispered. He chuckled. So you're willing to be obedient to your master, as long as he's not asking you for... He leaned closer. Sex, he whispered, imitating her. Not appreciating his laugh, him laughing at her, she nodded.
Correct.
And in return, I don't force you to marry me.
Correct,
she responded. But what if we find ourselves hungering for each other in a fever that won't be denied? Do you suggest we sin? She rolled her eyes again. This man's vanity knew no bounds.
First of all, you don't have to worry about the fever coming over me. I'm 25 years old and I've never been sick before. But if I do mean an out of this world, 1 in a trillion chance I do fall prey to this virus.
She paused for a moment, as if the words she was going to say next caused her physical pain.
We'll marry before we sin,
she muttered. And you won't try to run away?
I will respect you as a master, doing anything you require me to do. That's not sex. And you don't have to worry about me running away.
A very devious smile came on his face. You have yourself a deal, sweetheart. You will do anything I require of you as long as it's not sex. But if and when it gets to that point where we both want it, we marry, no questions about it. She laughed. This was too easy.
If we get to the point where we both want it, then yes, we'll marry rather than live in sin.
He stood. Come, let me show you where you'll be sleeping. She frowned as she stood. It seemed as if he agreed to her terms rather quickly. He was up to something. After lifting his sleeping son off the couch, he led the way down a long hall. The house was ranch style, but still pretty spacious. There were several rooms in this hall. Then the house opened up to a huge kitchen. Dina liked the kitchen because there were a lot of windows. She wondered how big the backyard was and if he had a garden. She followed him down another hall. He stopped at the first bedroom and disappeared inside. She stood by the door and watched him lay his son lovingly in the bed, and after taking off his shoes, covered him with his blanket. However, when he stood and turned back to her, she took several steps back, giving him space. Because now, with nothing in his strong arms, he suddenly felt threatening. He smiled down at her as he passed. Right this way. She followed him to a pair of double doors at the end of the hall. However, when he opened it, her steps slowed.
Wait, this is your bedroom,
she accused, looking up at him. And now it's yours as well. Her mouth fell open.
I'm not sleeping in here with you.
Sure you are, because it's what I require of you. And didn't you just sit in the living room with your pretty little nose in the air and promise to do whatever I require? She folded her arms.
Yeah, whatever you require that's not sex.
He opened his arms. Sweetheart, this is not sex. This is a bedroom. She narrowed her eyes at him, not taking kindly to his insult. He reminded her of Dawid in the way he was teasing her.
I know this is a bedroom, which is exactly where sex happens.
He chuckled, sitting on the side of the bed as he began to take off his shoes. Yes, sex does happen in the bedroom, or in the kitchen, or in the shower. He raised his steamy gaze to look at her. Or wherever the need hits. I was just showing you where you were going to sleep, But hey, he threw up his hands. If you want to have sex, let's make a covenant and I can make that happen for you.
I don't want to have sex, which is why I'm not sleeping in here with you.
Sure you are. Our agreement was you do what I say when I say it, and I don't force you into marriage. But if you want to renege, we can make our covenant right now as well. Yah stood staring at him, too late realizing that she had been tricked. She should have been more specific about her arrangements before she made this deal with him. Who knows all he could require of her outside of the sexual act? A wicked smile spread across his face when he saw that it had just now dawned on her that she had gotten herself in a bit of trouble. Come on, baby, let's get some sleep, he muttered before standing to take his shirt off. Yah put her hand to her throat as her eyes took in his chest and ripped abs. When he put his hand on his pants, she took off across the room and jumped into bed, burying herself underneath the covers so that she didn't have to see him. This caused him to laugh as he slid into a pair of pajama bottoms. He settled into bed and turned off the light. She scooted over as far as she could get, but she might as well have not bothered because his strong arm wrapped around her waist and pulled her back across the bed and up against him. She stiffened like a board.
Malachi, what are you doing?
Shh, he told her. I was half asleep already. She lay there as her heart raced in fear. He had tucked her back so tight against his front, it was hard to tell where he ended and she began. This was the first time for her. She had never slept with a man, and it felt a little weird. Several times when she was a kid, she had walked into Ty's room and caught Monroe curled up behind her sister with his arm around her like this. Her parents sometimes slept this way, and she had always wondered what it felt like. Now she knew. If her body wasn't frozen in fear, she could admit it wasn't too bad. But because she was strung tight, waiting for him to touch her somewhere he had no business or go back on his word and try to force her to have sex with him, she couldn't really enjoy it. After a while, though, she felt his body relax and sleep. Only then did she exhale, flooded with relief that he didn't try anything and really wanted to sleep. Before she drifted off herself, she had a little talk with Yah. She prayed for her parents wherever they were. She prayed for Dawid and Monroe. She prayed for Ty. She prayed for Gideon and Safiyyah, Stormy and Shlomo, and the rest of the family from the Lion's Den. She prayed for the earth that was groaning. She prayed for Yah's people that were roaming. She prayed for the journey ahead of them. And then last but not least, she prayed that Yah freed her from her captivity. The next morning, when I awake, the only thing I could do was lie in my bed and stare up at my walls in amazement. The early morning sun was shining bright through the 4 windows of my room. They caused the golden notes to shimmer in a way that made the music come to life. I inhaled, floored by what I was seeing. Tears came to my eyes. I never thought that I would see this in my lifetime. But Monroe had made a promise, and he had delivered even while the world was on fire. I took my time sitting up in the bed until the notes stopped singing to me. Dog was stretched out on the rug in front of my mattress. I reached out and I rubbed her fur. Morning, girl. She lifted her head and licked my palm. I sat up for a minute and listened for any movement in the other room. I didn't even know how to begin to address Monroe. He wanted to sleep with me, although he didn't love me anymore. I shook my head. See, that just wasn't gonna work for me. Now, don't get me wrong. I would love to make love to my husband again, but not like that. It wouldn't be the same. The first time when we came together had been beautiful, perfect, because I felt his love in each of his touches. And yeah, I have been young and dumb and I messed that up, but I cannot settle for less now. If he didn't love me, fine. Although it broke my heart, he can have it his way, but he wasn't gonna have it with me. I could hear male voices coming through my window. Throwing the covers back, I came to my feet and crossed the floor looking out.
This window had a perfect view of the ocean, and for a minute I just stared at it. That was the Atlantic, the same ocean my people crossed coming here in the belly of those ships. I know it wasn't a coincidence we find ourselves back here at this very shore. Yah is moving. Something is happening. I just didn't know what. But I did know now this is where we were supposed to be at this exact time. Something else I had my husband to thank for. Had he not come to me, I would have led my people back west out of pure stupidity. Speaking of my husband, the male voice I heard was his. He was down at the base of the mountain on the seaside going through sword drills with a group of men. The sword moved in his hand like it was an extension of him. There was no one I knew outside of my dad, Dawid, and the preacher who could handle that weapon like that. No wonder they called him the blind swordsman. As I walked in the bathroom to freshen up for the day, I couldn't help but smile remembering how he dogged my father to teach him all he knew about the sword. Of course, to my dad's great irritation. He believed that Monroe was reckless and would eventually cut his fool head off. His words. But Monroe didn't give up, and he showed up every morning to be trained by my dad in swordsmanship. Kind of like how Dawid had done Gideon, until he had taught him all he knew about the gun. Coming up the way they did, everybody was surprised Monroe took to the sword like my dad, and Dawid took the guns like Gideon. My brother and his wayward friend, two peas of the same pod. Sadness swept over my heart when I thought about what I had done to cause them to fight that day. I didn't know it was going to get so far out of hand. After our wedding night, Monroe had dropped me off at the gym. I was supposed to be working on a song that had come to me while he made love to me that night before. But after I showered and dressed for the day, I just wanted to be with him. That's when I knew I loved him, because I would rather be with him than compose the song that was burning to come out of me. I had decided to surprise him at him and Dawid's place. I walked up the stairs and went to knock on the window, but my hand froze because Monroe sat there on the couch shirtless, playing the PlayStation, while some chicken head that he had been messing with for a while braided his hair. She laughed at something he said and reached down and wrapped her arms around his neck, hugging him close. I didn't wait to see anything else. My heart was broken in a million pieces. The song of love I had in my head fled to be replaced by one of bitterness and pain. I ran back across the street to the gym and I wrote the lyrics to the song on a piece of paper. When I was done, I realized I had just wrote a bill of divorce. When he came back later that day, dressed to the nines, hair freshly braided, it hit me that he was so dangerously handsome that women will forever be throwing themselves at him. Back then, I couldn't understand why he loved me. I mean, I knew that I wasn't ugly, but I was just average. I couldn't wrap my mind around why a boy so flawless would love an average girl the way that he did. So, I thought he was lying. He couldn't possibly love me the way that he claimed. I thought I would be able to just get rid of him and pretend like our wedding night didn't happen. And I was doing pretty good at acting normal so that my parents didn't find out what I did. The thought of how my dad would receive the news kept me up at night. I think it was safe to say that Monroe was his least favorite person in the whole world. Anyway, everything was going good on my end, but Monroe was not taking the breakup well. He started drinking real heavily, and while drunk started wilding out. Dawid was trying to figure out what was wrong with him. Even in his pain, he didn't break his promise to me and reveal to our family what we had done. It got so bad that he started sitting outside the gym in his car, waiting for me to leave by myself so that he could beg me to come back to him. I wanted to, because even though I was too stubborn to admit it then, I loved him with my whole heart and all my soul. But I had convinced myself that if I gave in to him, I will forever be his fool and end up like so many women being torn apart by their unfaithful men. Because of his drinking, his relationship with Dawid had become strained, to the point where Dawid told me he didn't want me to be around him if he was drunk. A few weeks had passed and I hadn't heard anything from Monroe, and I was talking to Benaiah in the back of the gym. Sweet, gentle Benaiah. Before Monroe came in the picture, I had imagined that it was he I would marry. He'd always been around. He was Dawid's other best friend. He seemed like the perfect fit. Anyway, Monroe came stumbling up to us. Even before he got close, I knew he was drunk. The smell of alcohol blending in with his cologne was undeniable. Seeing him like this angered me. I know he was stronger than this. He knew better than to fall for these kind of deceptions. He was a warrior of Yah. How was it possible he could be falling prey to something like alcohol?
Look, baby, look what I did for you.
He turned his head and my hand flew to my mouth. He had my name tattooed on his neck. In fact, he had AnatiYah, my songbird, tattooed on his neck. Then he looked up and for the first time saw Benaiah standing there. I saw Benaiah stiffen. He would never admit it, but he feared Monroe, who, under the guise of sparring with him, has hurt him several times.
What you doing back here with my lady, Ak?
He asked, drawing himself up. I could tell by the look in his strange eyes that he was getting ready to hurt Benaiah. I grabbed his arm and pushed him towards the gym door. Go inside, B. Let me talk to Monroe for a minute.
No, Ty. This fool drunk. You know Dawid don't want you around him like this. Nigga, this is my girl. You and Dawid ain't got nothing to say about me being around her. Let me find out you're trying to keep her away from me, and I promise.
I put my hand over his mouth while pushing him away from Benaiah. The whole time he was talking to him, he was getting closer and closer to him. And if Monroe got within striking range, he was going to swing. While drunk, he was so unpredictable. Benaiah, go in, I yelled back at him. He looked at me for a minute, but then he went into the gym. I turned around and I slapped Monroe as hard as I could.
Damn, Ty, why you do that?
He asked, rubbing his cheek. Because you're a disgrace. Look at you, I yelled at him, gesturing towards his neck. A tattoo, Monroe? Really? What's wrong with you? What kind of servant are you? He got so angry, he jerked away from me.
A servant that's living without his wife.
I held my head down, not able to look into his eyes.
You can't just write me off, Ty. Why would you? You can't just make me disappear.
He held out his arms.
What about me?
That pissed me off. What about you? I'll tell you what about you. I was so mad, I walked into him and I muffed him. This pretty face of yours attracts every woman that comes across your path. And I don't want to live like that. I don't want to always be worried about what you're doing and who you're doing it with. That's hell, can't you see that? I growled through clenched lips. I heard Dawid's truck pull up out front. And I was more than positive Benaiah was telling him that I was back here talking to a drunk Monroe. You gotta leave, I told him, pushing him away.
No,
he said.
No, I can't. I need you, baby. Just give me a kiss. Look, let me make love to you one more time and show you what you mean to me.
He started backing me up against the wall, trying to kiss me. Stop, Monroe. Damn, stop. You got to go. I pushed him away just as Dawid ran through the back door. He wasn't trying to hear nothing. He charged Monroe, hitting him hard. I screamed out, trying to pull him off. He was hitting him like, he wasn't hitting him like a brother. He was hitting him like an enemy. Dawid, get off of him, I yelled, but he wouldn't. I saw the change come over Monroe. I saw when he looked up at Dawid as if he was an enemy. He did some kind of maneuver with his body that broke Dawid's hold on him, and then he grabbed a brick and slammed it against Dawid's head. Then he was up and he was hitting him savagely. Dawid grabbed something and I couldn't remember what, but he hit Monroe, knocking him across the alley. And when they came back together, they was fighting like they wanted to kill each other. I ran into the gym just as my dad and mom was walking in. Daddy, help me. Dawid and Monroe are trying to kill each other, I cried. He chuckled.
Don't they always?
He took my mother's coat from her. No, Daddy, it's for real this time. They are going to kill each other. And I guess he must have seen the look on my face. He sprinted past me. By the time he got control over the two of them, They both sported an array of knots and bruises, and my dad was using all his strength to keep them separate, which is saying a lot because my dad have a lot of strength.
Don't let me see you around my sister again,
Dawid yelled, pointing at him.
She don't want you, man. She don't want to marry you. Just move on. What's wrong with you?
Monroe snatched away from my dad and stormed out the gym. For the next few weeks, Monroe and Dawid barely spoke to each other. If one of them was home, then the other would leave. It really broke my heart to see them that way. I tried to talk to Dawid and tell him that Monroe needed his love rather than his silence.
He needs to put that bottle down. That's what he needs.
He would growl. I started feeling helpless. Like maybe I should come clean and tell them that Monroe was acting like this because I had married him on my 18th birthday. They all just thought he had asked to marry me and I said no. But the more tension rose between Monroe and my brother and father, the harder it became. It got so bad that Monroe stopped coming to the gym altogether. I told myself that I was going to have to try and forget him or I was going to go crazy. But it was nearly impossible to do. That night, everything went down. Now, to me, seemed supernatural. The timing was completely flawless. It was as if everything that happened was meant to happen. I had gone across the street to give Dawid back the money I borrowed from him, but he wasn't there. So I left the money on his dresser and headed back toward the front door. Monroe walked in. It didn't look like he was drunk, but he had taken one look at me and he walked towards me, and it had been so long since we saw each other. Next thing I know, we were kissing. For a minute, I had forgotten all that had transpired between us. I could only feel. He lifted me off my feet and put my back against the wall. We kissed each other like we'd missed each other, starved for what we can only get from the other. I heard Dawid's truck pull up, and I tried to push out of Monroe's arms.
No, baby, don't push me away. I need you so bad,
He whispered as his kiss moved down to my neck. Monroe, you gotta stop, I said low as I could, knowing that it would do no good because my brother could still hear it. Monroe, please stop. Then I pushed him as hard as I could. The impact caused me to fall back out of his arms. He reached for me to catch me, grabbing my arm with one hand and my shirt with the other. My shirt ripped off in his hand just as Dawid burst through the door. And oh my goodness, they began to fight again, completely trashing Gideon and Yah's home. I ran and got my dad. By the time we got back, the fight had spilled out into the street. My dad grabbed Dawid, forcibly carrying him back into the gym, but Monroe followed.
Come on, Ty, we leaving. F them if they can't accept me. I'm yours, baby. You mine. What else do I have?
I was crying so hard I couldn't speak. I felt like I had done this to him somehow, but I didn't know how. I had seen him with that girl. Why was he taking our split up so hard? Dawid started yelling at him to leave the gym and leave me alone. Even my dad was asking him to go and never come back, but he refused to leave without me. And he still didn't tell them, y'all, the whole time. He still didn't break his promise to me. By the time Gideon and Yah walked through the door, everybody's tempers was raised and it was going downhill. Everything in me screamed to just come clean and just tell them what I had done, but I was so scared. And then Monroe cut his face, and it was almost as if he had cut mine too, because I swear I felt the pain. He was so wild and crazy, and I knew if I told my dad he was my husband, my dad would lose it and try to kill Monroe. And then Gideon would have to fight my dad. I was in a terrible situation, and I had no idea how to get out of it. When they left, I froze in panic, worried that Dawid would kill Monroe or vice versa. But then Preacher told us that their journey had begun. I guess at that point, we all had to accept that Yah's will would be done. It was hard for my parents, but they managed to do it. Not me. I fell into a hole when he was gone. I realized that without him, I was incomplete. I hated getting out of bed, knowing that I wouldn't see him. I didn't want to eat. I just wanted to disappear and go wherever he went. Monroe had become my heartbeat, and I felt as if I couldn't breathe without him. It was so easy to take one for granted when they were there,
But once they were gone and it was too late to say I love you, or too late to wrap your arms around them and hold them tight, you began to feel desperate. Ty, I blinked, coming out of my thoughts. Gina? I cried, running out of my room and down the stairs, dog close behind me. When I saw my sister walking through the kitchen being led by little Jacob, I cried out running to her. I hugged her like she had been missing for weeks. Gina, I am so happy to see you. She squeezed me back. Me too. How are you? Dear Yah, is it true that you're here with Monroe? Our Monroe? I nodded at her as I squatted down in front of little Jacob. Hey buddy, are you helping my little sister be not afraid? He nodded.
Yep, I showed her where I keep my secret stash of golden rocks and my car collection.
Oh yeah? He nodded. Gina put her hands on his little shoulders. Yes, he did. He is so strong and brave. I feel very safe now. Her words caused the little fella to puff out his chest in pride. Can you help me feed dog here? I asked, patting the big wolf next to me. His face brightened.
Yeah, I know where Monroe keep their treats.
He took off toward the kitchen and dog followed. She was so smart. When I stood, I hugged Gina to me again. How are you, sweetheart? When Jacob was out of ear's reach, her shoulders slumped. Horrible. I pulled her to sit on one of the chairs in the living room. I took the other. I was preparing myself because it appeared as if I was going to have to kill a man. If she told me the judge hurt her in any way, nothing would be able to stop me from slitting his throat. What happened? I asked. She put her hands in her head. Dear Yah, she was crying. I jumped up out of the chair as my heart began to race. I had been so caught up in seeing Monroe again that I had put very little fight up as my precious little sister fell into the hands of an abuser. Oh my goodness, Gina, talk to me. What did he do? Did he hurt you? Did he force himself on you? She nodded. He hurt me. I looked around for a weapon. Where is he? She shrugged. I don't know. He left the house before I woke up. I began to pace, thinking about the best way to handle this. I had already fought him, so I know for a fact I would not be able to beat him in a fair fight. I was going to have to sneak up on him, maybe while he was sleeping. What did he do? Oh yeah, this is all my fault. I should have fought harder when he took you out of the court. I hit my palm against my head. I couldn't do nothing right. I was always messing up. Dear Yah, what was wrong with me? Why am I such a damaged human being? He's trying to force me to marry him. It took me a while for her words to register to me. I was prepared to hear he raped me, or something like that. I stopped pacing and frowned down at her as I tried to regain control of my racing heart. What? I asked her. He wants to marry me so that he can do Yah knows what to me. She had the nerve to say that, like it was the worst damn thing that could be happening right now. But I told him no. I told him I was going to do the job that he brought me here to do and nothing more. Then she had the nerve to turn her nose up in the air. I couldn't believe this. I have been going through hell and this all she had to complain about? Why are you staring at me like that? She asked, frowning at me. Damn it, Gina. Can you for once act like a damn adult and not like a spoiled brat? She opened her mouth as if I had slapped her. Dad, get tired. Why you snapping on me? Because you inconsiderate. I just told you I had been brought here to Monroe and all you can complain about is some man who harassed you with a damn marriage proposal? She put her hand on her hip. Ain't that the kettle calling the pot black? If my memory serves correct, you too were being harassed by some man with a damn marriage proposal as well. So what? You tripping about it is okay, but when I get angry and say no, I'm a brat? Don't you think that's a bit hypocritical? Jacob had come back in the room. Baby, can you go play with dog in the other room while me and Ty finish talking? He nodded his head.
Come on, dog. Let's go play catch.
Dog trotted out the room behind the little fella. I exhaled, feeling defeated. Slowly, I walked to the window, and I looked out at Monroe, who still trained his men down by the beach. Very gently, I fingered the curtain, tracing the outline of his body in it. Well, that's where you wrong, little sister. I was not being harassed by a man offering a marriage proposal. I was being harassed by a man whose marriage proposal I had accepted and joined together in a covenant on my 18th birthday.